Hey, hold on, let me get my phone together. 10, 2, 4, 3, 6, 9. Hey, Camilla.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you? Can you see me? Is everything clear?
Oh, it's super clear. Yeah, excuse my camera. It always seems to, this camera washes me out. I don't know what it is. No matter where I am, it makes me look different.
Don't even worry about it. I think you look fabulous. I love the glow. It's that aura. So that's all that's coming. That good positive energy. That is what is coming.
Right.
Well,
That's great. That's great.
Great. Well, first, to be respectful of your time, I definitely want to thank you so much for having this moment with us here in celebration and awareness of 8830. It really is critical and important that we continue to have these conversations and do it in cross communities. And I just truly want to say thank you so much. And moving forward, to be respectful of your time, I'm going to say hi to everybody out there that's watching us. We are here with the MS Alliance Foundation in celebration of having the bigger conversation for 8830. And we are here with Mr. Stephen McDow. Now, full disclosure, I've known Stephen for, goodness, since high school, I guess.
Let me see. It had to have been. Let me see. Has it been more than 20 years? It's like 30 years. 40.
Yeah,
like,
almost about 30 years, because you were at Duke Ellington and I was at Wilson, and then we were.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Time flies. I can't believe how fast things seem to move. I still feel like I'm like 13, 14 again, entering high school, but yet when I go out and try to do those things, my body tells me, no, you're not that age. You are actually 43.
Which is still a good number, which is still an excellent number.
Right, exactly.
But this is great. This is a wonderful segue. I would love for you to take a few minutes and just introduce yourself and give us, your 5 points, who, what, when, where, how, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and I guess one thing we couldn't read on your resume.
One thing I couldn't get on my resume?
One thing that somebody would.
Well, let's see. Well, good morning, everyone. Camilla, I'm happy to be here and happy to participate. I'm always excited about you engaging me and allowing me to just come and engage in the conversation to talk about individuals with disabilities within the entire ecosystem, especially as that pertains to people of color. It's an important conversation to continue to have, and it's an important conversation that, quite frankly, we should be having across sectors, across specialties, because individuals with disabilities impact or are a part of every aspect of our lives. And of course, I come from the cooperative perspective. I have well over 10, 15 years of experience in outreach and sort of grassroots type of work. And currently, the last 3 years, specifically been in the cooperative community. I'm very excited that I've moved from sort of an advocacy organization, a cooperative association, the National Cooperative Business Association, and spent some time where I am now as the membership outreach and education director at Keystone Development Center. And there I get to see how cooperative businesses really impact lives. And especially when you start talking about individuals who are marginalized from rural and urban America, you have to talk about individuals with disabilities and how the cooperative advantage will not only help empower those individuals who are often left behind, but also give them skills, much needed skills to live independently and autonomously throughout their entire lives as adults. And so, again, I'm just excited to have this conversation. Yeah, I mean, yes, candidly, I've known you for a very long time, but more importantly, there's so much synergy between what you do and what I'm doing, and so much work we can do to move forward.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you had the opportunity in that intro and that bio, because that leads right into our next question. Can you detail with us a little bit more about the whole cooperative movement? I know you had an opportunity to present that to the DC Commission on Persons with Disabilities here in Washington, DC. And I'm glad that you have been willing to come back and basically kind of do that a little bit more again, maybe expanding it just a little bit more so that people have a fuller understanding, embracing in that movement and in this kind of that partnership synergy that you're talking about.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think, the cooperative enterprise is, what we like to say in the co-op community, this is a cooperative moment. And I just want to bring it home and get to, what we're dealing with now with fighting for social and economic equity and a more inclusive social and economic economy. When we think about that, the cooperative enterprise is the model poised to really make extreme advances during this time. When you start talking about wanting to build an economic infrastructure where people of color, for example, feel independent and have the ability to invest in our own communities and our own selves, you think about, wow, you don't even know it, but you're thinking about the cooperative business model. When you're talking about moving in solidarity amongst no matter who you are and on all shades in order to achieve, because not only is it Black folks who are feeling the brunt of capitalism and the 1% who are being greedy, there are poor whites, Latinos or Latinx individuals across the spectrum of Black and brown who are struggling right now. And when you think about that, the cooperative enterprise is the answer. So I always like to go back to the principles of the cooperative model, and it's voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, members' economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training, and information, and cooperation amongst cooperatives. And of course, the last one, number 7, is concern for community. And when you think about those principles fit not only when you're talking about LGBTQ, people of color, when you're talking about individuals with disabilities. And people say, well, why are cooperatives so great? Well, do you want to operate in transparency? Do you want an environment where you can actually take ownership in part of the business, that you're just not an employee subject to this traditional hierarchy, that you actually have a say in the running and the investment of the business? And a co-op allows you that opportunity. And what we're seeing now in this moment, we're seeing individuals who want to be tree nuts co-op farmers, who want to go into livestock, whether they do vertical urban farming, whether they're all the way moving out to rural America. We see individuals now who want to start worker cooperatives all over the world, people of color wanting to get back to traditional ways of doing things. And we see worker cooperatives in urban communities, coffee shops, home care is really big in the cooperative community right now. And I say what we need to do more of, and this is kind of lifting up the skirt a little bit, we need to do more innovation in the cooperative community. And we need to also care more about innovation for individuals with disabilities. And I'm working with sort of a side hustle, and as they say, with a client who is who patented a smart elevator lift chair for individuals with mobility issues. And when we talk about folks with disabilities, and especially people of color often left behind, we want more Black folks innovating across the world. Because if we're not innovating, we're following. So we need to do more leading and more investment so we can have a seat at the table with all individuals, no matter what colors they are, to definitely innovate. And I believe the cooperative model is the one that's going to lead us to do that. And when you look at the cooperative history, throughout time, there's always been these moments of sort of innovation and burst in technology, whether you're looking at the early on with the Industrial Revolution. And if you look at just a little bit after that, you start seeing co-ops really boom. Whenever there's a change in society, there's always an opportunity for co-ops to help fill the gap. Now, that's great, but I want co-ops to lead the revolution, lead innovation. And I think that's where I am now. So I hope I didn't say too much, but I'll leave it there.
No. And that kind of leads us into a much more fuller discussion with regards to trying to bring that synergy into underserved and underrepresented communities. I would like to know about the representation and or access to individuals with disabilities and chronic conditions with regards to co-ops. I know that me and you had talked about doing more outreach campaigns, let individuals know that this is an opportunity for them, that this is a space where they can be creative and innovative and find their voice, or be, even more importantly, economically sustainable, if possible, moving in this movement. But I also feel that there's a gap. I think we're going to have an honest conversation here. What are we doing with regards to making this cooperative movement not just quote unquote ADA compliant, but accessible and inclusive?
Well, you know what? I think we need to do more. I think we need to do more as a society as a whole. I went and I started, because, I had the same question. So I went and I started doing some research on what is really happening out there. And I saw that Canada, for example, has Common Ground Cooperative, where they are incubating or teaching individuals with disabilities skills, working skills, that then they can go apply to these co-op businesses as a way to empower them, and also as a way to prepare. And that's often what, where the gaps are, is like, how do we train people and get them ready to take on those types of jobs? So I know that that's going on in Canada. I looked at my friend's Co-op News over in the UK, and I came across some research that indicated that there are efforts in Spain, in Mondragon, there are efforts in Germany, there are efforts in Indonesia, the article I sent you just the other day, and all of these are efforts to try to the stigma of having a disability, but creating also programs where you can train individuals with disabilities and also empower them by making them owners and also workers in a cooperative. And I think here in the States, we can do a lot more of that. And most certainly that is a conversation that we have to continue to have, because I think, the problem is, when you start talking about inequality and quite frankly, inefficient access to anything like that's remotely related to economic and social sort of mobility, oftentimes individuals with disabilities are left off. They're not even on the radar, and
yes.
Yeah, and so we need to do a better job, I think, as integrating that in our efforts to help fight for equality. For example, the organization I work for now helped start, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but they helped start a taxi co-op in Montgomery County, Maryland, that they're all wheelchair accessible taxis. They want to focus on senior citizens, but it's called Anytime Taxi. They have these lime green taxis, and you'll start seeing them if you're ever in Montgomery County. In fact, they sit at Shady Grove Metro all the time, and they were started by Africans, people from Pakistan, and they used to work in for-profit taxi companies in DC, and they were taken advantage of. And then what happened, they teamed up with the AFL-CIO, formed their own union, and then launched their own business. So those are the types of businesses that we have to be more intentional about starting, because you cannot talk about be more intentional about people of color and opening up doors of economic prosperity without talking about individual disabilities as well.
Right, I completely agree. And yes, and thank you so much for bringing that to our awareness. As you know, transportation with regards to individuals with disabilities is a huge issue and a major gap. And knowing that not only is that a layer of individuals having economic sustainability, but also offering accessibility in that format through a cooperative model in addition to that, because unfortunately a lot of individuals of color and or with disabilities are not going to be in economic place where they can sink $50,000, $30,000 into startup funding for their own business. But
absolutely,
under your cooperative model, then there is a place. I need just to find that funding, but to find that potential support as well, which is kind of speaks on my next question with regards to partnership. Talk a little bit about individuals, the model that you spoke of with regards to where people were drawn in. How do you get involved with the cooperative movement?
Well, I know it's funny, I tell this story, I told it, wow, I always talk about, because they always ask me this question, like, how did you so fired up, like, and how did you get involved in it? You know, about 3-4 years ago, I started getting to the point, it was right around when we started talking about the Affordable Care Act, and we started talking about individuals, that's when I started seeing this bubbling of conflict or tension between rural and urban America. I mean, it's always been there, but I'm like, I was really like there and engaged in the front lines. And when we started talking about like, oh yeah, there's going to be a shift of money from like more urban hospitals and urban healthcare environments to more rural environments, because the shift in population is, the trajectory is happening that way. So individuals are moving from urban centers and moving to more rural places like Kansas because it's more affordable. And then, you know, people are like, well, no, you can't do that because we can't leave urban America behind. And then rural America's like, well, no, we need to be able to sustain and handle that influx of people from a healthcare perspective. So I started becoming extremely interested in like, how can we bring people together? Black, white, rural, urban, anyone who's feeling left behind right now. How do we bring, and then I saw a chart from the Congressional Budget Office, and this was probably 2010 or 11, which indicated that the percentage of productivity was at an all-time high. However, salaries were, if not flat, declining amongst all industries. People weren't getting paid. So I said, you know what, there has to be a way to like solve this inequity. And then I started doing research and I came across this thing called a co-op. And then I realized that, you remember, right around the corner from where our families live, that grocery store used to be a co-op. It was part of Tacoma Park. And I realized that, oh, you know what? We were members of a co-op once. Oh, credit unions are co-ops. Well, let me learn more about this. And then, of course, I was able to interview for that position at NCBA CLUSA, where I met Doug O'Brien, their current CEO. He was then vice president of programs, who just came out of President Obama's administration. He was on his ad council at the White House, and he was a career professional at the USDA. And when I met him, it was just like, wow. And we started talking about inclusive economy, and we started talking about, building that kind of equity. It just like my eyes like just exploded. And then I went into that organization, and that's kind of where it started. And the rest is history. I've had the opportunity to speak, of course, in the UK about American co-ops. I've been interviewed, by publications about. The most important work, I feel, is getting right there in the community and seeing lives that are absolutely changed because of a cooperative business.
Right, and I definitely can see that, where this is one of those things that can really touch the community. Be real grassroots movement, move it up, and as long as we make sure to keep that message of accessibility and inclusion at the forefront, then we don't have to come back on the back end and fix anything that may not necessarily be accessible. So we do appreciate you so much for kind of having this conversation and always being a part of it, actually. You had come to me when you had started with the co-op and said, I want to talk to the DC Commission on Persons with Disabilities about this. You asked for our expertise in this, and how can we make sure that everybody is included in this movement, because you see it as a real way of sustainability. And I think that is excellent, which kind of brings us to our other topic. You talked a little bit about rural America and urban America. Where do we see with regards to the intersections of farming and disability inclusion? We talk a little bit about this, specifically among Black farmers and kind of the disability there. But then we also talk about urban farmers. We have, my mother grows vegetables in her backyard. Your mother was growing, your grandmother used to grow vegetables in her backyard as well. So where are we with regards to the intersection of farming, the co-op, under this whole umbrella of accessibility and inclusion for ABA 30? What do we see moving forward with that?
Well, I mean, I think, there's an organization called Agribility, and they talk about the access of equipment and trainings for individuals with disabilities. because oftentimes if you have a physical disability, historically, individuals thought they could not continue to farm. And what's happening is that individuals are thinking of innovating, of ways to innovate by having technology, lifting technology, in technology that's more accessible to individuals who have sort of like, sort of hand-eye kind of challenges that need tools to help assist them, and people, if you look at that website, you can look at, they're talking about prosthetics, they're talking about lifting technology, they're talking about all of these ways to integrate technologies in the agricultural community to help individuals with disabilities be successful, and to let people know that just because you have a physical disability, that you're not out of the game. You can still work. You can still be a farmer. You can still take control. Now, when you start talking about the intersection of urban and agriculture, that is like a whole loaded topic, because in fact, that's something that we're talking about right now. I'm trying to mobilize our urban farmers in Baltimore and in Philadelphia to sit on a diversity panel because they're also kind of in the co-op kind of space as well. And I'm trying to get folks, and and we'll see how that goes. But what we need to do is have an intentional conversation as to resources when it comes to when we're talking about people of color. Because oftentimes urban farmers feel like, well, where's the money for me? Like, for example, Keystone Development Center, where I work, is funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So that's mainly, the money allows us to do rural work. When it comes to urban work, we need to find other funds. And sometimes funds are limited. Now, I've met folks at SunTrust Bank and at different banks in Baltimore who have said, you know what, I want to figure out how we can start funding social enterprises and let it be a cooperative as well. And so those are conversations that we are trying to have as well. I know that a good colleague of mine who, Ron Hance, who's also a professor, but he also runs the Network for Developing Conscious Communities, and both in DC and Baltimore, and he received some funding to do some intentional work in Baltimore in terms of building Black and Brown cooperative businesses, but there needs to be more. And we were excited this year as a whole, for example, first time was allowing cooperatives to apply, for loans. So they're recognized now, and that's work that NCBA CLUSA and other partners were doing at the federal level. So there will be some access to, additional funding out there. And it just so happens that happened right when COVID hit. So the co-ops were able to apply for PPP and EIDL, for example, as a result. So we are seeing some strides there, but so much more needs to be done. And, and you and I both go to the Congressional Black Caucus events, and when you look at all those sponsors there, wouldn't it be fabulous if they were helping to sponsor folks with disabilities and also folks in the co-op community? I would love to see more of that happening as well.
I love that. And thank you so much for telling us about Agribility. I hadn't heard that website, and that's the kind of information we need to make sure that we're getting out into the community. We're going to have to do an awareness statement. This is possibly just going to have to be part one, because I would love to have the time into that and bring on individuals with questions, specifically those that I've talked to that want to be part of this urban cooperative farming movement, but can't seem to figure out the bridge or the access for that.
Right.
With that said, I also didn't know if there was anything that you wanted to say specifically. You've kind of done just a great presentation with regards to touching on everything, and even kind of looking at what we want to see in the next 30 years for 8830. But any other personal messages that you would like to send out to the community with regards to inclusion, accessibility, and if you're comfortable, I would be hopeful that there might be a way for individuals to be able to connect with you personally, to try and learn more about the cooperative movement. When's the next time that you're speaking, when's the next time they can pick up one of your awareness, they can tag onto your newsletter, however that will work best for you, if you'd be comfortable in giving that information.
Oh, absolutely. I will give you not only my email address. I mean, I'm on Twitter as well. I'll give you my Twitter handle, my Facebook. Individuals can, get in touch with me on Instagram. I am open to having these conversations any place, every place, all the time, day and night. I think everyone gets tired of me talking about co-ops. but I'll keep going as long as there's inequity, and as long as there's a space. And and honestly, when you're talking about the next 20 or 30 years, when you start talking about the use of AI technology and the use of biometric technologies and contact tracing technology, we as people of color need to not be afraid of that. We need to embrace it and be at the table. Because I did read an article once that said that some of these AI technologies are being discriminatory just because they're being programmed by mostly white individuals. Now, I'm not trying to bash a white person at all, but what I'm saying is that we need to have more people of color at the table programming these types of technologies and this innovation so that those kind of discriminatory kind of actions don't happen. So when you're driving down the street, a car won't run into you just because you're black. We have enough time dealing with other aspects. We don't need to increase, our liability walking down the street. So when we talk about that, we need to innovate more. And absolutely, anyone is able to reach out to me, and I am more than happy to continue this conversation. And anytime you need me, I'm always here. And I know that things always get crazy. But we can definitely continue to figure out how we can work together. And conversations like these are important because oftentimes when I'm talking to Black cooperators, we're preaching to the choir. We're talking to individuals who already know about the co-op movement, or you're talking to an individual who has a great theory and a great idea, but the community's like, well, how do we get it done? Where do we get the money to do this? So there's kind of a sense of helplessness and hopelessness, and oftentimes. And so we need to do more of this kind of education so that individuals from the establishment in the Black community to all the way down to the person who's shoveling or pushing the ground and understand about social enterprises and how what's important.
I think that is great. And, Stephen McDow, my friend, I'm actually going to close out on that because that was a perfect ending. And if you would please feel free just to just say your Twitter handle or your email address. It will all be included in the bio information attached with the presentation. But just so anybody that is listening and is taking notes, can take that right now.
Well, yeah, you can reach me on Twitter @McCooperator, or you can @STEPHENMCDOW. Both are kind of connected to each other, so you can always find me. You can find me on Facebook at Stephen McDow. I also have my own website, which also has a way to reach out to me at www.stephenmcdow.com. I am more than happy to get in touch with, to respond to anyone. And like I said, to continue having this conversation publicly or privately.
Well, on that note, I want to say thank you and thank you to everybody that's watching, and we will continue this conversation as we move forward. And happy 88th 30 to everybody. Stephen, all my thanks. Words cannot express how much I appreciate you, not just for joining us in this conversation in this awareness campaign for this month, but for the work that you're doing. All right.
Absolutely. The same to you, Camilla, always. I always talk about everything that you're doing and your work there in DC. So I'm very proud of it and proud of you, and definitely hope to see you soon once we get some sort of vaccine, or at least with a mask on.
Yes. That'll be next
All right.
All right, my love. Thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful afternoon. Have a great 8830, and we will see you at the next conversation.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.